Hey everyone, thanks for coming. We have a very special guest hailing all the way from Melbourne, Australia. He's an improvised acid techno pioneer performing live since the early 90s. He holds a PhD in composition and music from Monash University. He signed to Carl Cox and Christopher Coe's label, Awesome Soundwave, and he's coming to a city near you soon, so be sure to check him out. And when he does, please welcome Dr. David Haberfeld, also known as HONEYSMACK.
Woo! Thank you so much.
I say good morning because it's morning here in Melbourne, but it's afternoon in LA. And in Europe, it is midday, I guess.
Well, it's 4 here.
Okay, so in Europe, it's what? Lunch.
It's middle of the night. It's 1 o'clock in the night.
Oh, okay.
If you're a baker, it's morning, so that's fine, I guess.
All right. So, go ahead, David. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. This has been, we've been wanting to have you come on for quite some time. And I am sure I can speak for the rest of the people here that we are dying to hear about your process. Not only hear your jam, but just how you make the decisions that you make, meaning what gear you're picking, why, the signal flow, and just your whole thoughts and process on live performance in general. So I really appreciate you taking the time out. And I know it's early in the morning there, so I hope you've had your coffee before you get into your jam.
Well, actually, I have to tell everyone it's 9:09 a.m. at the moment here in Melbourne, so that's very important.
That's a perfect time to get it started then. Just let everybody know, again, my name is Trovarsi. Welcome if you haven't been here before. This is a platform we like to do these Zoom sessions from our Patreon members, and this is the opportunity to actually hear an artist directly and have an opportunity to ask them questions. And normally, on YouTube, we watch your videos and we watch the artist's videos, and we're like, we want to ask questions, but obviously it's not a live video. So this is a perfect opportunity. So if you do have questions, please raise your hands. I'll be sure to call on you, or Tom will call on you. We'll get your questions answered. And without further ado, David, HONEYSMACK, I will let you take it from here. I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, I'll hopefully the other camera will work. How about this? Are we seeing some gear? Lovely
view.
Awesome. And I will just so people know, you can see me now kind of. I'm an improviser, so I don't actually save or work anything out prior to any performance or production whatsoever. So literally I was with Trovarsi and Tom maybe 15, 20 minutes ago, and I just turned everything on. So it might take me a minute or maybe another 15 years before you hear something good, right? So I'm going to now mute my microphone, take this microphone off, and I will jam for about 5-10 minutes thereabouts and come back. If you feel nauseous or anything like that, please feel free to go to the bathroom and purge your body fluids if you need to. How's that?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, that was. You could have kept going, but we have questions and all that stuff.
Sorry.
No. I meant like I could have sat here for hours, but Thank you so much.
I'll change the camera so you can see my horrible, beautiful face. I don't know.
Thank you. Wow. I'll let you kind of take us through it really quick, just like just a setup run through.
Okay, maybe I'll swap cameras so I can perhaps show you a bit up close. I think that might be better. Cool. Let's have a quick look. So it all begins with the octatrack is the, I guess, the master clock. Now, I do not sequence, I don't use a main sequencer. So part of my improvisational approach is that I use the onboard sequencers on any device. Is really important for me. So the main, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bits, 7 bits. Actually, David, collect your thoughts and start again. As an academic, Okay. So what's important about my approach is that I see my entire studio as an instrument. So I don't actually see a particular drum machine or synth as an individual instrument. The whole studio is an instrument, and it's, from the mixer, the effects, the sequences, the voices creating sounds, they are all part of one instrument. That's the way I see it. It's not new to me. I didn't come up with this concept. People like Virgil Moorfield, an academic from MIT, was the one who termed the word meta instrument. Anyway, back to the gear, right? Trovarsi, right, Tom? Okay. So in a typical setup for me is always a 909, a 303. Here I'm using the Avalon bassline. I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. What was the last count of 303s I had? I think it was like 15 or 22 or something like that.
303.
I have
devices in your studio. That's great.
I have a unhealthy obsession with 303s, and this is still the first one. Oops, you see that?
Nice.
That's the first one I bought for, what was it, 50 Australian dollars, which I think is about 30 US dollars.
Wow.
A long time ago. Anyway, it still has the skateboard sticker with the subject music on it. Okay. Let's get back to it. So 303909 is very important. The modular synth is full of percussion elements or drum voices, I guess. You can't see the wall of modular gear here, but I'll show you the other shot in a sec. Now in the modular, I've got a DFAM in there. I've actually got 2 DFAMs, but I'm using one today. I've got the Metropolis and the Metron as my sequencer.
Okay.
And I've got 2 BIAs, I've got 2 SY05s, and Atlantis as my main voices. I'm not using the Pulsar 23 at all. I know it's on, but I'm not using it. Now the modular is routed into the octatrack, and I am constantly resampling it. So, and then re-triggering it kind of randomly, and I'm always listening to what's going on. Just down here on the lower shelf, I've got the machine drum, which I think I bought maybe 20 years ago. It's the missing link between the old Roland gear and the future. I've got a Quandrandwit Swarm, if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Then you can slap my face later.
You got it right.
I've got the Model 1 mixer. I swore for 30 years I would never buy a DJ mixer. This is a performance tool. This is it's not even a DJ mixer. It's more like a old console with the 2 filters per channel. and that I've got eventide, space, and time factor hanging off it. So kick is separated. The rest of the 99 percussion has its own channel. The 303 has its own channel. The modular going through the octatrack has its own channel. I've got the machine drum and the swarm going through its own channels as well.
Is that six channels total? Six
channels in total, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I think I've got up to maybe 6 Mackie mixers. Now I don't use them. I'm actually just using a little one here so I can plug the microphone into. But really, my approach is I turn everything on. I don't save sequences. And when I use machines that have patterns in them, such as the 303s or even the drum machines, I'm not using the patterns in any prescribed way. So I don't understand pitch. So as you can see, there's no keyboards or very little keyboards in my studio because I can't play. And I don't respect pitch or traditional ways of making music whatsoever. I'm really just building a density. I'm constructing and reconstructing all the time. So when I perform and when I record for recorded works, it is literally the same approach. Okay. So the album I did for Awesome Soundwave, I literally took a whole lot of gear to Carl Cox's studio and we just recorded for 2 days, 11 hours, and we just lifted certain performances from that.
Gotcha.
Yep. I guess I'll get back in my chair and you can start asking me questions. Is that enough about what I just kind of did? I'm sure there's more
you might want to stay there if you don't mind, because I want to ask you just so I'm going to ask you some questions just to a little bit more detail. So when
can you see me? Do you want me to stand like that? Is that better? Hi.
Hey. So with the octatrack, let's start there. So when you say that you sample in your modular, so you have a mixer in the modular case, or no? Oh,
yes.
Go straight to the. Okay. So you submix. Yes. Okay.
Yes. There's lots of little. Well, there tends to be lots of little sub mixers. So I've got the WMD performance mixer.
Okay.
And the great thing about the mixer is that I will use, say, 2 BIAs and 2 SY05s, and that's going through a little crossfader.
Okay.
And I have, because each channel on the performance mixer has 2 inputs as well.
Right. Yeah,
so,
I have that mixer. It's great for that reason.
Yeah. And look, I resisted modular synths for a very long time because I knew that it would be just like crack for me. But also because the way in which I work is very modular. So I don't have a prescribed way or sound that I want to achieve. Now, hang on, just hold up before your questions come. Of course, the 909 and 303 tends to be, the starting positions. But I don't, I hear a lot of, when I speak to, say, when I speak to a lot of peers or young artists and producers, everyone talks about, I'm after a particular sound. I'm going for a particular, they're trying to achieve a particular sound. I don't have that whatsoever. All right. I want to almost immerse myself in this kind of cacophony of sounds and what have you, this density of rhythm, and then see what happy accidents and where something, where the value lies. That's why I guess traditional music making is very rule based. It's a code, and having taught at conservatoriums at universities in Australia, a lot of amazingly talented musicians can't break that code. It's very hard for them because it's their programming. I don't have that program, maybe because of my punk background as well. But if I'm entertaining myself, hopefully that will entertain an audience as well. I hope that kind of answered that.
So when you're okay, so then when you're taking your modular, your case, and you routing it into your Octatrack, and you say
Yes.
you're sampling. Now, are you just so you're kind of as you do everything on the fly? I see that you're obviously not cueing it. You're just kind of going with, the feeling in that. So, do you then go back through and sequence on the Octatrack, or do you because obviously you set up the crossfader to cross between to resample and then cross back into what you sampled. Is that what you're doing?
That's right. So I'm going between the live output of the modular
right
to the sampled bits that I've chopped up or that I've asked the Octatrack to pre-chop. So it depends on, again, it just depends on, when I go to a gig, it depends on how I'm feeling. Will I chop that into 8, 16, 24, whatever it may be.
Okay.
And
we're
when I
all
put
hearing it for the first time, just like you, right? So like just you sampling it, and then when you open up that fader and cross into it, we're
Totally.
all. That's awesome.
Totally. Like for instance, I'll put it up for a sec.
Sure.
Just as an example, right? And I'll just play the modular. And let's go with just one voice.
To be clear, you don't tune any of your oscillators, or you don't worry about any tuning. It's just all tonal.
Tuning, I don't know what that means. Like tuna fish, is that what you mean?
Yep.
No, there is absolutely no tuning at all.
Okay.
Right? No quantizers.
Nice.
Okay, so here I'll just turn any effect off. So we're just listening to the SY05 live, and just playing with the pitch as well, so you know. And now I will just tell my Octatrack, sample it. That's it. It's done. Now I've got some triggers already down there. And now let's move to the sampled version of it. Then I will change the start position sometimes. That's it. Are you recording this, Trovarsi? Because that's a track. That's it.
There you go.
And then as I'm performing, I go between live and sampled. Then I have effects set up in the modular where I will send it. And then I also have the effects on the Model 1 as well.
And when you say the effects on the Model 1, that's just because on the send, you're sending right to your pedals. Is that, or does
That's
it
right.
actually have? It doesn't have. Okay.
So there's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So there's effects modules in the modular. There are effects on the auxiliaries on the Model 1. Okay. And there's also an effects chain in the Octatrack. So I will do things like this. That's the sampled. That's live.
Okay, so you're using some of the effects in the Octatrack as well. There's a question from the chat. Do you always use the same source for the kick?
A 909 kick, 99.9%, yes. It tends to be a 909 kick, although I have to say the Pulsar 23, the Soma Labs Pulsar 23, I have done gigs with that with no 909, and that can pretty much replicate as the Americans would say, badass. Is that right? Am I pronouncing it correct?
Yep, badass.
I'm going to change my camera so I can come back and see some of the questions as well.
There is another question in the chat, and I do want to touch on it, but before we switch gears into that. Well, someone asked, or Devin asked, have you hit the limit on what you can travel on the plane with, and do you ever check bags in? But before we switch out of into the travel, I want to lead up to that, meaning when obviously you can't take your whole studio with you. So how do you decide, first of all, like when you have a gig, what is your thought process on that? Like, how do you decide? What are you taking? Is it going to be modular hardware? How many pieces? Like, what is your...
It tends to be one drum machine.
Okay.
So it would be, look, for many years, 15, 20 years, it was the 909. I don't travel with that as much anymore because it's quite big and heavy, and there's great emulations of the 909 now. I love the TR8. I love the TR09. I was a beta tester on the Behringer RD9 as well, which I haven't taken out yet, but I love that as well. I will take a 303 in some form. Again, I don't really take the original 303s. The Avalon I like quite a bit because I can also change the length of the sequence on the fly as well. Mm-hmm. Then what will I take? Then I will tend to take a modular rig of some type, and I've got a small IntelliGel case, like an 84 HP.
Okay.
So I might take something like that. What else? The Octatrack is rather important. A mixer, some effects.
Okay. When you say mixer, do you take the Model 1 with you then, or?
At the moment, yes, I do take the Model 1. I'm looking at getting a Model 1.4 because I could just use 4 channels.
Okay.
And it's smaller and it'd be lighter, of course.
Okay. Now, with a DJ mixer, I myself like to use a DJ mixer as well. I've gone back and forth with it. So what made you decide specifically the Model 1 versus, I don't know, the Zone 96 or 92 or even the DB4 that's digital? Just what was your...
This will sound like a weird answer. Excuse me. It was COVID. And what happened is that I was stuck in my studio and I started thinking, okay, I understand my performance approach. And I thought, I've seen friends and peers who use DJ mixers when they perform live with hardware, such as myself. So I thought, this is a great time to kind of road test this stuff. So Pioneer lent me the VJ-M10, the big 6-channel one. A friend lent me his Model 1. I also tried the Zone 96. And what else? I think I had some other older Pioneer mixers or what have you. But the thing that piqued my interest was 6 channels. I thought, if I could have 6 channels, then I can use it in the studio as well. Again, there's no difference.
In addition to the send? Is that 6 channels in addition to sends, or?
That's right. See, which I did not know, right? That's exactly right. So I also thought with 6 channels, I can use it in the studio as well. And this is the thing. I don't separate what I do out in front of an audience or what I do in the studio. It's the same thing. So it has to work in both environments. And I really liked the the Pioneer, but it was huge. And I'm not a purist or an elitist by any means, please. But I just felt there were some menus and I never felt immediately, it wasn't as immediate to me, I should say. I love the sound of it and I thought it was fantastic. But the Model 1 was like, it spoke to how I perform, which was I just turn it on and where the dial is, that's where it is, Right. And I just have to trust my ears, not some piece of firmware telling me, well, you're now routing it here or there or what have you. So, and the thing I really loved about the Model 1 was the dual filters. It was like,
is it filters per track too? Is that?
Yeah. So it's a master filter with resonance, and then each channel has its own low pass, high pass, and then a one band EQ as well.
Wow. Nice.
It's insane. So I immediately, after trying these out for like 6 months, I got the Model 1, and now I easily buy another 2 or 3. And I've actually modified my Model 1 so it gives me a post-fader outputs to my sound card.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was a big, a really important thing for me, because whilst, you could say I improvise, which I do, I need to kind of stem things out, because I don't know where the gold lies. I don't know, in the moment I could just be, the levels could be all over the place, even though I'm not precious about that stuff. But when we need to give it to, say, another label, it has to be of a particular quality.
No, that makes total sense. There's a question in the chat about about the faders. How do you mod it to post fader?
I went on this 3 to 6 month journey about this. So I bought the mixer. I loved it. The thing I really liked about the Pioneer is that it actually had the digital audio bus in there already. So you could record out via the USB bus and separate the channels. But I love the Model 1. And anyway, I asked Play Differently. I asked Allen and Heath. I asked the supplier. And they all said, if you fucking call us one more time or email us, not quite, but I just wasn't happy with the answer I was getting. And I remember speaking to, like co-producers and friends saying, it's not, and speaking to people who know electronics and saying, is this right? They said, look, you can do it, but it's a big job and this and that. Anyway, I went on to, what's the Modular Synth forum? Mod
Wiggler.
Mod Wiggler.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing some more research at night, and I found there was this thread about the Model 1. And I started writing, hey, does anyone know this modification? And then someone said there was an English industrial techno artist, I can't pronounce his name, who I actually love. And they said, oh, this guy used to work for them, or Allen and Heath. He's modified it exactly how you want it. I must have emailed, called him every platform he was on, and he emailed me like within half an hour. He said, yeah, sure, fine. This is how you do it. Gave me all the details and gave it to someone who understands electronics. I said, is this easy? And I said, yep. And
there you have
done,
it.
and it works.
Wow. Nice. Well, that's one thing that's really great about our synth community is that, I think that everybody is always helpful. Like you have these platforms like Mod Wiggler or these Discord channels where you can ask these kinds of questions, and you are going to eventually get your questions answered, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. It's the power of, what do they call it? Crowd, of the community. Someone's asking about, did he mod the Zone 96? No, the Zone 96 has a digital bus already built in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not 6 channels. It's actually only 4, because 2 of the channels are part of the return matrix. What I did, the modification on the Model 1 is there's no digital bus. So it's, we used the DB25, modded that. So I've got physical audio outputs that go then to my RME cards. And now I have 6. I have each channel post fader, the master channel, and I've also, via the RMEs, I've also got the effects, the return bus as well, separated.
Nice. Okay.
So now I can I don't even need a computer. The RMEs record straight to does direct recording to USB. So I don't even need a computer, and I can just
Pass the stems to
I can just hit record at any time, and there you go.
Nice. Huh. I might have to talk to you later about that mod. So with your modular case, so I noticed like your past gigs, you've been going out with that. What's the case that's behind you? Your modular?
Amalgam Mod, which is made and designed here in Melbourne by a friend here, and I've had that case for. Sorry.
Were you taking out two, or am I just? Did I not see the angle?
No, it's just one.
The one.
I do have it. I'll turn this. Can you see? I've got this wall of modular here as well, and I've got the IntelliGel 84 HP.
Okay.
And I tend to use that more. The big case, the one that you saw me perform with today, I don't like to take so much because I don't need that much. It's kind of overkill. And I know it's the kind of the fashionable thing at the moment. Make a smaller case. I borrowed is it the IntelliGel palette case?
Yes, there's two. The little one, and then there's like the 104.
Yeah, it was like the 60.
Yeah.
I tried that, and it's like I love limitations. I mean, the 303 is all about limitations, and I love it. But I just felt it wasn't quite enough for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, so now when you're playing these sets, you're playing longer sets, like, hour minimum. Do you, I guess, like.
Just 1 hour. I can't do any more than 1 hour.
Okay. I mean, it's harder than people think it is, especially if you're doing a lot of improvisation, Do you feel then like traveling? Let's get back to the question about somebody asked about traveling, which is something that I always battle with, is what I want to play with, meaning like what I can use in my studio, and like you have it's at my arm's reach. And now that we're coming out of COVID and being able to travel and play these gigs, it's always this battle of what do you bring? Like, what can you carry? I know, like you said, you're not taking out your 909. Are you taking the TR-09 as your main source of drums, or are you sampling it? Like what?
So no, I don't use any samples as such. I do have some, how do you say, like 80s mashup stuff that I've done in the studio that I've got in the Octatrack, and I just do that if I'm playing in a nightclub and I feel that dark techno, or I'm going somewhere too dark and I just need to bring everyone back. It's kind of, I call it kind of like ear candy. Do you know what I mean? It breeds a familiarity.
Right.
But I have played gigs with, I started playing shows with just a 909 and a 303. That's all it was. So I like limitations, and I have done gigs where I will just bring the Octatrack and a boutique 909 and 303. That's it. No mixer, no other effects. I remember about 5-6 years ago, a friend of mine, a close friend who I've got a project with, the Pulsar 23, and he's a live drummer, but he's a fantastic DJ and producer as well. He said, "Oh, can you come do this gig at a nightclub in Melbourne that's very famous?" And he goes, "We don't have much room," because he knows how much room I kind of tend to need. Right. And I said, no, I'd love to just bring the TR8. I brought a TR8, an Analog 4, the little one, the Mark 1, and a 303. And I literally set up on a speaker. And he said, "Look, if it works," if they didn't advertise that it was me or anything like that. And he said, "Look, maybe just play 15, 20 minutes or something like that." And I ended up playing like an hour. He kept saying, "You got to keep going, you got to keep going." And it was just awesome when you are focused on just a limited amount of sounds and your physiology with the hardware. Great things will come of it. Sometimes too many options doesn't mean better creative results.
Right. If you can feel crippled with too many options.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to ask you another question and slipped my mind, but I want to check in with everyone. I know we're approaching 5 and or to almost the top of the hour. We still have some time, but I just want to see if anybody has any other questions.
I'm just going to mute and get a glass of water. 1 sec.
Okay.
You all gather your thoughts while you watch my ass. Hang on.
But yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand or drop them in the chat, whichever one works for you. Tom, how are you doing?
Good.
You're good? Okay.
The important thing I want to, I guess I should say, is that I'm not interested in replicating the past in any way.
Okay.
Right? I know that sounds a bit weird because I am using a set of sounds that may sound familiar, like the 303 and the 909. But this is why it kind of excites me and it entertains me, because I know each gig can't be the same.
Right.
You know, and I guess that's what really separates what I do from DJing. I mean, in my dissertation, my exegesis, there's a whole section as to why, what I do is different to being a DJ, because DJ tends to be the catch-all. Oh, you're a DJ. It's like, no, I'm not. And people know that I have this kind of, I'm quite curt about people who call me a DJ. Say, yeah, I'm a fucking DJ. It's like, I hate it, right? And, I have great respect for many DJs, but I think DJing today has become, I don't know, it's like, decaffeinated almond milk lattes. It's like, I think there are very few exciting DJs. I don't understand why someone would watch a DJ, because the whole DJing came from disco, and disco changed the paradigm between people watching the artists perform on stage, and then the audience became the dominant paradigm, and the DJ was someone you didn't see. Through disco.
I remember that. It was like up in the DJ booth back somewhere you had no idea who was.
Yeah, you even hear interviews with like Nicky Ciano and all of that. These great disco DJs. They're almost like embarrassed to call themselves DJs. And it's like, when I was starting to do this, it's like, yeah, I could DJ, but I would never dare call myself a DJ. I was kind of embarrassed to say I was a DJ. But nowadays, people embrace the whole DJ thing, and it's popular, and all kudos to them, full respect to them, but it's just not what I do, and it's just not what I'm interested in. People constantly say track ID. It's like, I don't have no track ID.
Right.
You either,
and you out there, and they're like,
yeah, and I have a weird relationship with recorded music, because I know I need to record music in order for people to hear what I do, and to be booked by promoters and what have you. But I can take it or leave it. For me, the experience is, you come and see me because I don't record my sets ever. 30 years, I don't record my sets. Everyone says, you recording it? Nope. When I get the promoter or whoever, you're going to record the set? Yeah, we're going to record it. I swear to you, I'm not lying. In 25, 30 years, I think there's been successful maybe 5 or 6 times someone has recorded my set.
wow.
It never works. I don't give a fuck what the technology is at the time.
Right.
Never works.
I forget to hit record so many times. I started with the full intention of, I am going to record this time.
But the thing is? The thing is, what the recording doesn't capture is the energy.
Right.
Because, I take my performance cues from, Henry Rollins and, people like that, not from DJs or anything like that. When I started, I didn't want to play to electronic dance music audiences at all, because I knew that they would either love me or hate me. So I wanted to be in front of rock audiences. So That's why I guess people say that I have this kind of punk approach, aesthetic, and attitude, philosophy, whatever you want to call it. So that's why I don't play in a booth. I don't play on stages. I play on the dance floor with people around me, so I can kind of talk to them, and not talk, but I stop the music into it.
Right. Which leads me to there's a question, feeding off the audience. Do you feel any pressure when doing these improvised sequences, or is it more of an art? And if you don't like it, too bad. That's from Tom. He's asking that.
I have absolutely, my best advice to people who make music is I absolutely do not give a fuck what people say or do. So I have no pressure. And let me say this, I don't mean that came across the wrong way. What I'm saying is, if people are going to be worried, people's fear about what people think they're doing it's all about their own fears. You cannot make someone like your music. Doesn't matter what music you're making or how you're making it, regardless. All you can do is stand by what you do, and if it doesn't make you happy, then don't do it, because your happiness will not come from other people. And it's great when people say lovely things, and it's horrible when people say horrible things, but you've got to take it with the same approach. So when I'm booked, when I go to a gig, again, I'm doing what I'm doing. I've heard people say, "Oh, they've put you on next to this person or that person." I'm like, I don't care. I do what I do. And if they don't like it, that's not my problem. Think of what I do as a trade. I'm a plumber. I'm coming in to fix your plumbing, Right. If you want an electrician, I can't do the electrician, So, and I think that's the best advice. You've got to lower your expectation completely, because you can't take a survey of every single person. So how did you feel it was? Could you rate it out of 5? This is what fucking corporations do,
I appreciate you saying all this, because I have to be honest, these are things that really cross my mind. There's somebody who mentioned in the chat, I hope I don't mangle your name, Mr. Raquel.
This is Adrian. Yes. He's a friend. Yes.
Yeah,
a good friend.
He said the main problem with live hardware artists is that they feel like they need to sound like a DJ set. They need to change the attitude and bring back the sounds of live set. And, to be honest, I think about that because I'm often slotted in between, these big DJs, and then here's my live set. And it's just like, I do sometimes think about that. Like, okay, like I got to bring it. And like my level, like, the mix has to sound like mastered. Totally. Because it's like you're competing with the mastered sound of, a multitude of mastered recordings. So,
well, Trovarsi, I would say this. It's like, especially today, every single person on the planet is a fucking expert at everything, and the truth is that, we're not experts at anything whatsoever, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I can tell you through my experience what I have found, and that is that, this relates to kind of traditional music making. It's this code, and we're all like, people are also like worried about being perfect. What the fuck? I don't know if anyone knows, but computers have won. They've won. You can actually have, the perfect sound, the perfect performance, all via sophisticated software. Okay? But the thing that separates every artist, no matter what genre, no matter what you're doing, is the individual, Mm-hmm. And, as we all know, Trovarsi, I could come to your studio and you could plug all the gear in and I could start making some music, and I can tell you that what we do, what I do will be completely different to your output with exactly the same tools. This is the whole thing. And I think a lot of music manufacturers, gear manufacturers, have a lot to answer for. Because when I was a teenage, when I was a kid going into these stores to look at synths, they didn't want to know about me. It's like, go away, Now, all this gear is marketed to,
right.
electronic dance music producers and DJs. And a lot of them sell this gear based on how it sounds, how many things you can do with this particular device or module or what have you. And it's like, you know what? We can all buy exactly the same modules. I mean, think of the guitar. How many different kinds of music comes from a guitar? Doesn't mean that if you have a guitar that you're all going to make the same music. And young people think, oh, well, if I buy this because, you know, I don't know, Jeff Mills or
specific sound or
yeah. And that's how they sell plugins. They're still selling plugins based on this horrible band called the fucking Beatles. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? You know, technology has come so far and our thinking about music is so much more expansive than a certain set of rules. It's like I said at the start, if you're not happy, then your music won't be any good, whatever that is.
Right.
You know, and if, you know, I said to you, this is what I do. And if it entertains me, then hopefully it entertains, you know, other people. But you literally just have to do it because people don't know where success comes from. Right. And success does not mean money. I'm sorry. You know, I'm not a communist.
Definitely a personal
yeah.
feeling. Right.
Yeah.
Well, something you mentioned, so, you know, which I think is fascinating. I mean, just about gear, but especially about modular, just because, you know, we're constantly changing and buying and selling modules and, you know, how we could have the same exact case and make entirely different sounds and genres out of it. How do you pick your modules, especially, well, not especially, let me scratch that. So how do you pick your modules and the fact that you're not really worrying about pitch and tone and things like that? Like, how do you deal with the are there challenges? So this is a compound question. How do you pick your modules? And when you're not worried so much about pitch and tuning, how do you gauge like playing multiple voices together and dealing with that? Like I come from the back, I tune my oscillators, you know, and I layer the voices and I, you know, do harmony and melodies and shit like that, you know, but I also like atonal shit where it doesn't even matter what the pitch is. So how do you pick your modules and then how do you deal with that when you're playing multiple voices and you have no idea like what pitches if they're gonna kind of blend?
Okay, so the second question is easy to answer.
Okay.
So with kind of pitch and all that, I'm just listening all the time to the output, to what's going to the, you know, front of house, what's coming out of the machines, and then what the audience are responding to as well. So it's a bit of kind of like feedback loop. And the thing for me is there's no mistakes. I can't make a mistake because everything literally is, you could say, a mistake. So I'm listening to those kind of nuances. So I have to trust my ears, not in a tonal sense, but in a kind of timbral density rhythm kind of sense. I wish stuff could be in tune, but I don't know what it would give me. This is the thing. I've tried quantizers, and I just, you know, there's a quantizer in the Metropolis, and I just kind of randomly choose one. I don't even know what they mean, you know, and it's weird because I've studied music and have a PhD in it, but I just don't know what it means still. How do I choose my modules? One, I have my modular spirit guide here asking questions, who is Adrian, Mr. Michelle. So he's a close friend who actually helps. I guess, you know, the answer is that, you know, why do I have so much gear? Well, one is this has been built up over 30 years. I just didn't start buying this gear, you know. My 808 was, you know, $200, you know, my 303 was $50, you know. The 909 I think I spent was like, in Australia, it was like $500. I thought that's so expensive, you know, at the time.
Right, now it's like
yeah, like, you know, my 202. I remember it cost me like $200 or 230 Australian dollars, which is about 150 US dollars. And I thought, oh my God, that's so much money. And this is a time before it was exploding. Anyway, so why do I have so much gear? I have so much gear because I don't understand pitch, because every module, or, you know, and I consider a synth module as well, or every box a module, because I'm interested to see what opportunities or what new outcomes will come about from those boxes. So when I choose, coming back to Eurorack, how do I choose? Look, I'm an idiot. I also hear demos and I go, oh, that's kind of interesting. But sometimes I choose stuff that I think the demo was really bad, right? So when I see a demo of something and it's really bad, and here's the science to it, it's like, oh, if that's the result, maybe I could do something that is more applicable to my approach as well.
Okay.
But I think also modular for me, it's because I understand the history of synthesizers. A lot of them are emulating, or they're built on the ideas of early synths, such as the Buchla easel and things like Don Buchla, who I think is the most important person. Well, there's a lot of important people, but with synth design, and I think that Vlad Kilmer from Soma Labs, he's in the same community as that. Like that Pulsar 23 is,
It's amazing, yeah.
amazing. Again, there's no saving. It's literally it's built for improvisation, so that's why I love it. And the demos I saw of it, I thought this is horrible, but I just loved the design aesthetic. I love the design approach, and I thought this is made for improvisation. Yeah. So.
Right. There was a question earlier. I wanted to kind of circle back on it. It was just about this day and age in terms of releasing recordings and getting bookings. And I know you said you haven't recorded really any of your sets, or maybe 5 out of the years. So do you feel like that there is some sort of relationship between that, like releasing recordings, or do you feel like by doing what you've been doing, like on your YouTube channel, meaning like your live, just doing your live jams and having them on there, is that assisting with that, or social media? And just
I think so. I think social media has helped, because I'm in the studio and I'll be doing something and I'll just grab my phone and just hit record. And it's because I'm also kind of testing out. Did that sound any good? I'm not sure. And I guess it's a really quick way of, finding out, but not from like, what people will say or do, but it's like, oh, I can go back and quickly look at it again. And it also shows that I don't labor over sounds or what I'm doing. It's just a moment in time. It either works in that moment or it doesn't. I don't labor over tracks. It's like, I speak to young music makers and people who labor over, pieces of music, and I go like, the process sounds horrible, not the music. I'm saying, why would you put yourself through that? I find that really strange. It's like, it's either there or it isn't. Move on. It's like buying a module. It either works or it doesn't. Move on.
right.
You try synth. It either works or doesn't. Move on. It's people think that, I need to buy something or make something that's just going to be the solution for everything. I don't think anything is a solution at all. There's no perfect, like the Model 1 mixer. There's no perfect hardware or technology solution, because it's that old adage, software and instruments don't make music, humans make music. Mm-hmm. It's there. And the way it's marketed today, which is quite clever, it's like, you can do this and you can do that. It's like, well, no, you can't. If you don't have, if you want to sound like someone else, that's kind of easy to do. If you want to replicate and sound like someone else, it's easy. You can find out on YouTube or what have you. And that's what people love. I'm not so interested in doing that,
Right.
I remember when I started out, I felt, I'm sounding like so-and-so and so-and-so. And I thought, that's kind of puts me into the same field. But then I quickly moved on from that, I hope.
No, I understand. You're talking to somebody who's constantly changing their setup. Like at first it's like, but I've come to embrace it.
Yeah, I love it. This is the thing.
Always changing it, like always.
And it's always just a moment in time. It's just, this is what it is right now. And if you don't release it out into the ether, then you won't know. You know, the part that separates hobbyists from professionals, hobbyists are always working on something. They're always working on something. A professional says, it's done. It's out there. You know, I've given it, you know, I don't own it anymore. It's for the, you know, it's for everyone else to engage with. And whilst it sounds really simple, people are really challenged by that. They just can't, you know, oh, it's not right. Oh, I still have to do this to it. Oh, I still have to do that to it. It's like, what? No one cares about that. That's all about your own anxieties and fears. Just do it. The more you do it, the more you will, the more you're likely to succeed. You know,
And the less I've noticed that the more I've released music or changing my patches and all that stuff, it has less importance or less weight. It's easier to let it go and release it or put it out to the ether and move on. That is very true.
Yeah, you should come back in like 5 years or whatever it is and listen to it, go like, oh shit, what the fuck was I doing there? That sounded horrible. You know, do that. Then you will actually feel, you know, like you've accomplished something as well, regardless of whether you like it or not in the future. But, you know, I mean, I was signed to labels earlier on and I was trying to make music in a kind of traditional way. And I just realized I can't do that. It's not me.
It's not your thing.
You know? Yeah.
I want to pause for just a moment and check in. We're about quarter after, and we have about 5-10 minutes left. So I just want to check in and see if anybody had any last minute questions or comments. If you want to either put your hand up, drop it in the chat, or at this point, if you want to just unmute and say.
So someone's asking, do you only use instruments with built-in sequencers? Yeah, like sequencers is my performance interface. So whilst a traditional musician might have, you know, the keyboard or the guitar or, you know, the woodwind, for me, it's the sequencer. And, yeah, I didn't realize how important it was. And I couldn't articulate this when I was young, but now I definitely understand it's definitely the sequencer. That's why I love different sequences. And I love 303 clones because the sequencer all do something slightly different. So that's what I love to do. I love to play off different sequences all the time. You know, pretty much, you know, the sounds that come out of the modular, you know, it's kind of, it sums to like 1 or 2 sounds thereabouts. It's all kind of, you know, sounds like a digital synth emulating a Moog or a 303. I mean, like, you know, modular synths, you know, Eurorack is based on Dieter Dope for modifying his MS-404, which was a 303 clone. So naturally, I was going to be drawn to it.
So with that, like, which I should have asked you earlier, is how are you clocking everything? Like, what is your, I know you said Octatrack's your main clock, but what's your clocking procedure?
It depends how I'm set up. It tends to be, an electron box tends to be pretty good. And I only use the Octatrack, and it's like, I've heard this thing, oh, this clock is better than this clock. And it's like, how do you even know that? It's like, I've seen the science. It doesn't matter because I'm playing sequences off each other. So that creates, their nuances actually help create the funk, the groove, the rhythm, whatever you want to call it. But I just had my 909 modified with the new timing chip. And I told you, like, last night before I started this, it's completely fucked. It's not working at all very well. But sometimes it will be the 909 will be the master clock. It just really depends
But are you routing? Are you just like routing MIDI to one box using MIDI through, like keeping it pretty classic traditional, just
Totally.
into out, and sending through clock. Okay.
Just MIDI clock. I don't do any form of
Like the
MIDI
ERM
sequencing
clock
at all. Now I have a BeatStep Pro, which I use with just CV. I've tried the MIDI on it with the Soma 23. It's kind of cool, but I like to see the physical connection, because if something is not working in the studio, it literally means something's not getting the clock. That's what something doesn't work for me. It's not the sound. So it's just easy to follow. So I've got lots of different powered through boxes, or I just use throughs as well. And I don't use a computer. A computer is really just a tape recorder for me.
Okay.
Even though I teach Ableton and all of that. It's not that I'm against DAWs by any means. It's just that I grew up with hardware. That's how I started making music. We didn't have computers. We couldn't afford them. It's why I became an academic, because I kept going to university to get access to studios because I couldn't afford it.
All right. There's 3 questions in the chat, and one. Dennis has his hand up. Dennis, go ahead really quick.
Yeah, I just had a question from, I think last weekend on your Instagram. You were posting which was for me like the picnic table festival or something. Your equipment on a picnic table and you had everybody around you. I was just wondering what kind of thing it was, what kind of festival it was, kind of people it was, and how the vibe was.
So when I perform, it doesn't matter if it's a club or festival, I play on the dance floor. I refuse to play in booths or on stages. There are some larger festivals where it's just not possible to do that. Right. And it's very important that people can see what I'm doing, because I'm improvising. And even though people may not understand exactly what I'm doing, it doesn't matter. They can see that I am actually doing something, and every physical action has a sonic reaction. And that actually helps start to build the feedback loop. So they're responding. I'm going, oh, okay, this thing might be working. And so it's very important that they actually see everything that I do. I think they call it boiler room style, but sorry, I've been doing it way before boiler room was a thing. Sorry. I did a big festival about 3-4 weeks ago out in the bush here in Australia. Huge festival called Strawberry Fields, and it was just impossible. I could not be on the floor because it's just dirt. And we got there, and the stage was amazing, great visuals. And I thought, fuck, I can't be on the floor, which we knew that. How I can't just perform with them seeing the back of my gear. It's like I might as well just DJ, and I don't DJ, as you know. So what I did was we turned the table around, so I kind of had my back towards the audience, so they could see, the gear, and and they're not seeing the gear because I want them to show them, look how awesome my gear is. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just about them saying that I am playing an instrument. It's like seeing a band play or listening to the CD of a band. Right. So that's really, 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 really important when I perform. Like there's a lot of gigs that I won't do, and I'll say, well, you can't perform on the stage. We can't accommodate that. And I say, sorry. It's like, can't do it. Big festivals is a bit different. But yeah, so
accommodate for that at smaller venues.
Well, look, if I have a dance
playing on the floor versus
if I have a dance floor, I can play on it, And so the picnic table at that gig last week on Sunday literally that's the table they gave me, So there's nothing really interesting. It was like a kind of big outdoor beer garden and event place, and I almost didn't do the gig because they didn't understand the table and all of this. I said, no, I just need a table, and you put it in the middle of the dance floor next to the front of house, and I set up. It takes me 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and then I hit bang, and everyone dances. Oh, okay.
All right, so we have time for one more question. So I'm going to combine the question. So there was a question about jamming on the TV3 live. Do you find yourself using random generated sequences? And then also with that, do you use polyrhythms live? And if you do you track them in your head, or do you just kind of roll with it? So
yeah, easy to answer. So yes, there's always lots of polyrhythms. Some work, some don't. Do I use random sequences? So a lot of the 303s, especially the original 303, you cannot program live. You can't do it. So I will program a whole lot of sequences literally before I perform. And I was trying to show you on this, but not on that one. I have little notes on my gear sometimes because I'm not using sequence 1 with sequence 1 somewhere else. You can see I have like these little tiny notes.
nice.
And it's literally just to tell me the kind of sequence it might be, but it's completely cryptic. It'll be things like low, mad, stab, stomp. I don't even know what it means.
I'll put like housey or like
Yeah, but it's not even. And
trigger something in your brain to remind you what it's.
yeah, and now all I've got, I think on the one of the Behringer 303s, I think I've got just like stars next to some of the sequences. But again, they will be at kind of odd times. There might be a 7/16 or what have you. And when you go from sequence to sequence, you're changing the kind of polyrhythm as well with that. And you just don't know. So what kind of, whilst I might have been programming it in the studio, when I take it out live, I just like hit something accidentally. It's like, okay, this works.
Do you ever?
So I
Oh, sorry. I was going to say then, do you ever, since everything is kind of going against each other, do you find yourself that you're ever in the middle of a set and you like stop and start?
all the time.
Okay.
All the time. There's the Tip Top module that has kind of some samples in it, just odd samples. And that gig I just did on the picnic table, I remember I said to everyone, okay, I'm just going to find the sound now. And it just went bam, bam, found it. It's like, yeah, that's it. It was like this shitty piano sample or something, just like, doing like a stab or something.
Right.
And then when I found it, and then and it was just soloed, the crowd go nuts, So I do a lot of stopping and starting because it can get messy or things go out of time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I've ordered pizzas during the middle of a set and have had them delivered.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll ask people, how's it going? Could we take a customer survey form or something? I'm a smart ass, so that's part of the whole performance.
Love it.
Yeah.
David, I really appreciate you taking the time seriously, like just sharing your process and your studio. And just for those of, I did drop a few links of yours in the chat. I dropped your YouTube, your Bandcamp to your latest remix, the vinyl, which is awesome. I picked that up. It's great. Check it out, everyone. He has a Bandcamp on there, and I dropped another link, but it's definitely your YouTube, your website, and then the Bandcamp.
And Instagram tends to be the one that I'm most active on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And just for those who have just recently started following you, thank you for this being your first premiere to take your deep dive look into your new studio too. It's awesome.
Yeah, this is the new studio. Still, yeah. There's still some shelves and the new lights are coming, but it's this is the first kind of big operational expose, I guess.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Trovarsi, Tom, and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry if my accent is a little bit weird and if I talk shit too much, but yeah.
No, it's all good. Everything is great. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to stop the recording. All right.